Hey everyone, this is Patrick Gray with another Risky Business product demo here on our Risky Biz Product Demos YouTube page. These are of course sponsored videos, and they give our sponsors a chance to come onto our YouTube channel and show you the products that they're selling. It's one thing to hear about them in a podcast or see them on a website and screen captures and whatever. It's another thing entirely to see them in action. And joining us today is Martin McGregor. He is the Chief Executive and Co-founder of Devicie. And I think, a good way to describe Devicie is they make a platform that makes Microsoft's Intune actually usable, right? I think that's the best simple description of their product. Martin McGregor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's great to see you again.
Now, you just heard me describe your product as something that makes Intune usable. Is that a pretty accurate description? I'm guessing you've probably got a little bit more of a detailed one that you can give us.
Yeah, Intune is a part of it, but it's much bigger than that. There's a lot more that we're addressing. We're managing the whole life cycle of employee device management for our customers.
So, you say it's about endpoint, life cycle management. Is this like about managing a standard build across, an enterprise, a medium company? Like who's typically using this? And can you just describe the basic use case?
Sure. So organizations that are dealing with many devices, often over 50 or 100 users, where they need to build infrastructure to manage those devices, where they need to design the standard features and functions of that, and maintain essentially that design for those devices. We're covering all of those areas, and we're using our automation to enable organizations that might not find it feasible to build their own internal teams or manage their own infrastructure. They can use us as a service.
So you're kind of offering, managing an SOE across a customer environment as a service.
That's right, yeah. And so you could look at us as specialists in that domain. So we are really trying to get a fantastic end user experience that's quite hard for an organization to try and achieve by themselves, and also the kind of security outcomes that are required for you to deal with the threats that we have right now. It's quite hard.
And compliance as well, which I understand is something that you help with.
Absolutely, yeah. It's as a byproduct of having a focus on security, we make sure that security is mappable to standards, and organizations can meet their compliance requirements at the same time.
So I'm guessing for people who might be tuning into this, what's the sort of typical organization size that you cater to? Because I'd imagine this is the sort of thing that, a large enterprise is going to have their own desktop teams and stuff to manage all of this. Very small companies, micro companies like mine, for example, just don't really need it. So what's the sweet spot for you guys?
What's the easiest sell for us is actually enterprises, large organizations that are familiar with having to manage devices at scale and the problems of that. So we kind of slot in quite easily there because they often already have some trouble. You mentioned compliance. It's very common that they're struggling to meet their compliance obligations. We're able to get them to really great outcomes really, really fast there, and get the data that they need to give to auditors in a really, really fast way. Plus, we save a huge amount of time in manual labor, getting machines out of boxes, getting them set up, shipping them to end users. We're able to do all of those parts over the internet.
Well, and I understand, COVID-19 was kind of, made you guys quite relevant because of the number of people working remotely and having to provision standard builds to those users. I clearly got that wrong, because I would have thought you would be more popular in the SME space, but I guess this stuff is hard enough that sometimes an enterprise will look at it and say, well, if I could just automate this or outsource it, then why not? So what's the sort of upper limit of the orgs that are your customers, like in terms of desktop count?
Oh, there's no size. We're talking to organizations that have hundreds of thousands of users, and we're doing and beating other vendors in shootouts in organizations with hundreds of thousands of users. Our background is enterprise, so we did build it to solve this problem at scale. However, one thing is that many of our customers are actually small businesses or very fast-growing businesses who don't really want to deal with this problem. They want a really fantastic outcome really, really quickly, so they can scale up fast and not have to actually think about building systems to maintain employee devices.
Well, I guess, managing a standard build across a fleet is a pretty fundamental IT task, right? So it would make sense that, for the SMEs, it's a very easy thing. And, well, I mean, if it scales, if it's easy for an SME and it can scale, then yeah, I can understand how enterprises might want to take a look at it. Now, speaking of, we should bring up your screen. Now, we've had a bit of a think about how to do this demo, and we did have a crack at this previously, and one of the reasons we're re-recording this is because we didn't really have a way to show people you actually provisioning a system. So we've actually got this, and I'll bring it up here. We've actually got a second webcam. So I'm just going to put it in solo layout there so everyone can see it. On the left, we have a Mac OS box, and on the right, we have a Windows box. And these are, correct me if I'm wrong, Marty, these are just as they would appear after you've pulled them out of the box and switched them on. Is that correct?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So what I'll do is just go through the initial steps that most people will be familiar with when you do that. On the Mac device over here, I'm going to step through, select my language. I'll select English Australian. And then you obviously select what country you're in. You join a Wi-Fi network. So this can be your home Wi-Fi network, for example. Okay, and then because these devices have been, for example, the Mac here, when you purchase them through Apple, the business network, they actually already come associated with your organization, and we're able to manage them out of the box in that way. So you can see here already, it'll say that Devicie can automatically configure your computer here. So we will just select continue.
And if you're just dealing with a user's Mac, which doesn't come pre-configured for remote management, what do you have to instruct them to do to put it under remote management? Is that fairly straightforward?
That's fairly straightforward. They simply enroll into Intune once they're logged into the device. It's not as a nice process for end users, so we encourage organizations that haven't purchased their laptops like that in the past to change that approach. And then what we're doing here is we're using our corporate credentials. It'd be your same login that you log into your computer with. We provide those credentials at boot time to authenticate the device, to make sure that it's trustworthy. And this backs into Windows Hello, so we can use all sorts of two-factor methods here. Okay, then it'll just ask me for my code. Now that we're authenticated to the organization, the device will start setting up. So at this point, we're applying security configurations, we're installing applications, all sorts of things like that.
And I'm guessing this is just asking for a single use. Why is it asking you to create an account? Is that just like a local account?
That's right. Yeah. So this is some of the things that Mac does is a little bit different to Windows. One of them is that it does require the creation of a local account during system setup. You'll also notice here that there actually already is password complexity. So because we've already joined the device to the organization, it's already downloaded some policies, and one of those is some controls around the local admin, the local user, including password complexity. I'll just pop over to the Windows device and just continue that build.
All righty. There, everyone can see Martin McGregor's hands on keyboard. Okay, so I can see you've just entered in some very basic stuff into the Windows system, and this is already doing its thing?
That's right. Yeah, there's less steps with Windows, and also some of these things we can prescribe. However, a lot of our customers are international and do have different languages, so we do want to actually allow them to set their location, their keyboard preferences, and language.
Yeah, and especially if someone visiting from a different region needs to provision their laptop or something, and yeah, that's that can be awkward where it's like, you're visiting Russia, so we're going to give you Russian language. Well, not that many people are visiting Russia at the moment. All right, so what we might do is that's all going to be just bubbling away in the background. Although I see the Mac one's pretty much done, isn't it? It's just down to the user customization stuff now.
Yeah, we do need to. Another step that happens with Mac is that we actually need to authenticate again to Intune. That's a restriction that you have regardless of how you manage your Mac. It's something prescribed by Apple. So we actually want to go to our company portal. This is a step that you don't need to do on Windows.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that the fact that you can, Intune macOS at all is kind of surprising when you think about it.
Exactly. And especially when you consider for how many years it's been very, very difficult to do any kind of management of a Mac in an enterprise at all. Okay. You can see the devices that I have associated with my user here already. And we can see all of that, the apps that are provided to this organization as well. All of these can be auto-installed. For example, we also manage all of these applications. So they're always kept up to date for our customers, and we support custom applications that the organization may develop for themselves, all the way to applications that do appear on the Mac store. Okay.
So you can, like, if someone wants something a bit esoteric, you can offer to manage that for them, can you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And is it like a subscription fee per user per app sort of thing, or?
We have a per user model in terms of how we sell. Then we have 2 streams, and that's a per user per month thing. And then we have 2 different ways of dealing with applications. We have applications that are on our back catalog. In other words, they're applications that we manage ongoing, and they're available to all of our customers. And then we have bespoke applications, which are particular to the organization, and there is a charge for those applications. Again, it's based on how often we update them or how often the organization needs to update them. That can sometimes be a compliance thing, but it's typically based on how frequently they want it updated.
Yeah, no, makes sense. But, definitely saving someone somewhere a headache, right, by taking on that headache as a trusted partner. So let's go back to the screen. So you're pretty much done with the Mac box, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump over to the Windows box again and just continue this part here as well, if you just bear with me. Then again, we just need to put in our verification code. Okay, and now with Windows, there are less steps, as I mentioned, less times that it does interrupt the user. But again, what's happening now, as the system is actually being set up, all of the applications are being installed. We're applying security controls. There's a bunch of controls that we apply. A lot of those map back to CIS, so we get 100% mapping back to all of the CIS controls that we're able to apply. And then a lot of those controls also go to the Essential 8, and we're able to, with our customers, get to maturity level 1 very, very, very easily. I'll just stop you there and explain to the listeners who might not be based in Australia that the Essential 8 is the list of, sort of 8 most important things to do security-wise that is issued by the Australian Signals Directorate, which is our NSA. That's right, yeah. Interestingly enough, the first time that I actually heard of the Essential 8 when it was only 4 was actually from an American doing a SANS course about 10 years ago. So yeah, it was popular, right? So there we go. Those things will just boil, trouble, toil in the background. But then we're going to have a look at the actual console for this thing. Let me just add that to the video here. Abracadabra, there we go. So now we're looking at the console, right? Now this is the stuff on the back end. This is going to show you things like patch level. It's going to show you things like compliance over time and whatever. Marty, why don't you just walk us through the console? Sure. So as we mentioned, these devices are building all the configurations, all of the applications that are installed. We we're gathering a great amount of data that we store and we represent in this dashboard. Who we're trying to look after with this dashboard is IT people that usually have to manage these things, and the security teams that are often concerned about these things. So, for example, we're showing here the update history. In this context, it's PCI DSS compliance, which is what they're interested in, this customer. And I'll give you an example here of the patching, for example. We'll come back to that view. Here we can see that Devicie is also keeping these devices up to date. We've got the different operating systems that happen to be in this organization: iOS, macOS, and Windows. And what I'll just demonstrate here for you is how Devicie actually operates and patches. So we have a security.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Sorry to cut you off there, man, but it probably is worth mentioning that you do handle the patching, the OS patching, right, as well as application maintenance.
Absolutely, that we do OS upgrades. So we actually manage the operating systems and keep those up to date. We keep the security patches up to date, and we keep all of the applications up to date as part of our service. What this view in here particular demonstrates is all of their non-compliance and their compliance. So in this, as I mentioned, this is a PCI DSS compliant organization, so they're concerned about that. Here we can see all of the devices that have security patches out of date. Here, you can see 10 at some points. It goes up a little bit higher in the past year. That was a time where they decided they wanted to pause patching because they had some important events on in the business. But otherwise, Devicie is keeping all of their organizations compliant over the whole year. You can see as the organization has onboarded devices here, the device count that we manage has grown and grown. But if we go to the current date here, an audit is able to come in and see every time that devices go in and out of compliance. And how this works is we're actually talking to the manufacturers of the operating systems, and we're pulling the data about current security patch levels, and we're doing a differential with all of the devices in the fleet, and then showing exactly where their compliance is. As soon as
the yellow 9 represents devices that are 30 to 90 days behind. That's right. Is that right? Like why is that? Why are they that far behind when they're under management?
So it's a policy decision for the organization. All of these are things that we can adjust, based on preferences. So we have some organizations that want to be very aggressive and apply security updates within a day. We actually can apply them as soon as they're available, and we can apply them to the whole organization, but we slow them down deliberately. So what we do is when we onboard a customer, we nominate pilot users. Those are often people in IT that can test. We always apply patches to them first, security patches to them first, allow them opportunity to make sure that they're safe before they go to pilot users from each role group in the organization. Again, we give them an opportunity to make sure that they're safe before we roll them out to each of those roles in the whole organization.
Yeah, because so if you wanted to, you could flatten that yellowed line against the bottom there, just down there with the red one, but that's a policy decision. I still don't understand why people, I get why people might want to wait a little while. 30 to 90 seems a bit crazy to me, but so hey, 30. What do I know? I'm just a talking head.
No. It's so what it is with PCI in particular, you have the requirement is to get critical patches done within 30 days, and non-critical can happen between up to 90 days. So typically it's the non-criticals that are happening 90 days. And
I feel a little bit less outraged and aggrieved now, Marty. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a decision based on operational impact. So you might look at this and think, oh, geez, they've got a whole bunch of devices that are, well, let's look at the moment right now. We can see they're all 1 to 30 days, right? 53 that are not. That's still a big jump for most organizations. And the other thing that we also know here is this is all devices, because we have visibility of all devices in the organization. So any devices that are non-compliant, we can find those really, really quickly. One of the points about non-compliant devices here is that if a device is offline and comes online, we pull the data straight away from that device. So if that's non-compliant, we'll report it on here and we'll update it straight away, but we'll obviously still have that non-compliance data in our dashboards.
All right.
let me just explain this graph here regarding our OS updates. So again, we orchestrate that for our customers. We can see here devices, versions of the operating systems that are out of support. Devicie was able to upgrade all of those. Whenever new versions come out, even Windows 11, some of our customers have opted to go with Windows 11. We totally orchestrate for them that for them. Again, we use that same discipline where we deploy to pilot users first and then pilot users of role groups. And the organization can choose how quickly they want to go. With OS security updates, we actually go a little bit slower. We take a whole week before we even test them internally. Then we do about a week's worth of testing. We deploy to our company's devices and also look at the community and news that we're getting about the impact of those new versions. Then we deploy to our test users for our customers, give them an opportunity to test their applications, make sure that they're all okay. And you can actually see that demonstrated here with this version here of 20, which one is this here? We've got 21H2. So when that came out, Windows 11 21H2, you can see the first user that we've updated. We wait a while, the second one, leave them a little bit, then third, 5. Now we're going to all of the different users in the role groups. Once they're happy, we just start to push that out to every single user in the organization. And across all of our customers, we do survey them. We're still yet to find any organizer, any customer or any user that's actually complained about these processes. We try to make them as low impact as possible for end users.
Yeah.
We try
balance,
to do
right? And I imagine too that if everyone's getting wrecked with some Windows O Day, then you can just flip a switch and roll it out to everyone, right? You can make that judgment call, or you can ask the customer, what do you want to do? Exactly.
That's exactly right. There are no constraints on how fast we can actually deploy. It's very, very quickly. But as I mentioned, we do slow that down for safety.
Now, is there anything else on the console side of it that you want to show us? Because it is actually a pretty simple thing. I mean, the real benefit here is in the sort of endpoint management stuff, but, it's not like some incredibly dense, web application that you have to spend a lot of time in. It just draws some pretty charts. And I mean, can you fiddle with your standard build in this console, or is that more of a, get in touch with your contact at Devicie and ask them to add an application or something to the SOE? Like, how does that work?
So all of the configurations, all of the personalizations we manage through support and our onboarding process with customers. All of those processes.
So it's not self-service, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that it needs to be, but because I imagine the dev overhead in making that all work would be probably at this point anyway not worth it.
Well, so our whole back end is ready for that. So we've been building processes from day one so that our customers can do exactly what you've described. So all of the automation for us to get to that state is there. The gap is our dashboard. For the rest of this year, the majority of our development is going into this dashboard. So by the end of this year, there will be a self-service function in here. And then a lot of the things like risk accepting security settings, like permitting or disallowing an admin user, changing the thresholds for updates.
Yeah, like gating, because essentially you're gating patches, right? And you'll be able to do that as a self-service thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. We're going to push more and more of that into the console because we're really trying to look after the IT administrator and the security team and give them what they need in this dashboard. And what we want to make sure we do is we never put information here that is actually not useful. Everything has to be for the purpose of doing a function or a role or a job. A good example of that here is the warranty information. This is a painful job, especially if you think about an organization that is spread across the world. We're able to see all of the devices in that organization. We talk to the manufacturer's APIs to pull warranty information for those devices, and we're able to display that. So you can come in here and find straight away where are all the devices in my organization that are out of date that I need to replace, and we can export this list really, really quickly to our service desk or whoever we need to, so that they can do that job. But we want to take away all of the trying to pull that information, trying to make sense of it. You can come in here, get the job done really, really quick for IT. That's the intention of it here. It's the same with where are the devices that are not encrypted in my organization? I can see every single one that doesn't have disk encryption. Here we can see that, in this case, there's a lot of iPads, but they're customer facing in this instance, so they don't have a passcode. So Apple doesn't allow encryption without a passcode. So that, there's certain things like that might be a known gap, but at least it's all in one place and you can see it all.
That's a handy one for sure. Spotting where encryption's been disabled, and an iPad won't do it because they use PBKDF2, so the key is actually derived from the passcode. So that won't work.
And then
even a bunch of zeros is going to be better, right? Not really, but anyway.
And it's the same with the devices that are out of date. If we have devices that are non-compliant, we want to be able to see all of those devices straight away and be able to make decisions about them. And that's something that we're helping here. We want to make sure that they have visibility of everything that's important to them. One of the areas that is quite important, and there's a lot of development happening in this regard for our front end this year, is application management. So obviously we mentioned we do manage applications for our customers and keep them up to date, but customers also do have the ability obviously to have local admin and install their own applications. So we still want to be able to capture all of those. So what we do is we pull all of the application inventory information from all of the devices in the organization again and show it in here. Again, we have retrospective data, so we can go back in time and have a look at what applications were, our status was a month ago. We can look at a particular device and see all of the applications that are installed there, and then the count of software as well, which is helpful. We can sort by count to see what versions are most prevalent in the organization. One of the things we want our customers to use with this information is realize where perhaps they've got lots of different versions where that could be causing problems for them, and we want them to bring us those problem applications, bring them under management so that we can get them to a really, really fantastic end state. One of the important things about managing applications and getting all of applications managed is that allows us to do some pretty cool things. And one of them is it allows us to manage and restrict local admin access. If a user doesn't...
This is something we should have talked about earlier in the demo, right? Because crushing local admin is hard. It's really hard. And you actually developed some insights here.
Yeah, so what I discovered doing this sort of work over a very, very long time is that the reason that we still have to give local admin to end users is because they don't trust us to support them sufficiently. And the primary way that they don't trust us to support them sufficiently is managing their applications. So end users, especially technical end users, developers, IT people, they have the skill to be able to do it, and they have the skill to do it, in a way that doesn't impact their work. So that's why they want to do it. But because we've really been able to shorten the amount of time that it takes to make an application available to an organization, primarily because we've automated a lot of the application packaging work. A customer can request an application. We can make it available in the company portal. We can assign it to their role group. We can set it to install at system build time. We can choose whether we install it before the user sees an interactive desktop or after. There's a lot of things that we can do there, a lot of customizations to make it really, really nice for that team to use those applications. And they always have up-to-date versions, and it actually puts them in a better position than when the team was all self-managing those applications. So that's the thing, right? Like, you're putting them in a position where they don't actually need local admin anymore. And I've done it. I've worked in an org before and kind of sneakily obtained local admin on a box. But there was stuff I wanted to use, and that was the only way I was going to use it. So, I guess if you start by collecting the telemetry on, where the sorts of apps that people are, requiring local admin to run and install and all of that, then if you can pull that under management, that makes a lot of sense. Totally. So here what we can do is quickly just work out exactly all of the unexpected admins in the organization. So who has that local admin that shouldn't have it, and we get a list of all those users. Obviously, we've hidden anything that could be PII here, but you can quickly work that out. The organization can make decisions about those. Do they want to risk accept them? do they want to allow that, or do they want to restrict admin? You can see this organization, for the most part, have restricted admin. We have some customers where they've been able to restrict it on every single device, and that includes an IT company, where the majority of staff are IT personnel. And the reason that they've done that is because a lot of their customers have quite high security standards. And
the reason they've done it is because they don't want to get owned easily.
They don't want to get owned easily, exactly. And they actually want to come to a customer with, exceeding a security standard rather than, trying to scrap along it to meet those requirements. That this is something that really, really helps that along. The other thing is that this actually keeps support queries down as well. If you can get, a situation where you don't have local admin, there's no ability for people to go rogue, install their own applications, and you can redirect them to a process where they can request an application that's made available for them. We're really reducing the likelihood of incompatibility or incorrectly configured applications.
Well, and it's also like, how many times does someone from the help desk have to help a user install this one thing, right? Like, after a while, that's going to get tedious. So, and then, trying to task the desktop group with, trying to spin up management of this application that only applies to 5% of users. It's, I mean, you're solving some political problems there as well. So, I mean, we're almost through the console demo here at this point. So maybe to make sense, let's go back to a full view of those systems. I'm guessing by now they're ready, right? So do you want to just show us that they're all ready and done, and they're ready to come out of the oven?
Sure. I'm going to log back into, well, you can see here we've got our corporate branding on both devices. That's all been set up automatically. But I'm just going to log into the Windows device here quickly. Yeah, so you can see that's logging in now. I'll just cross over to our Mac. Now, Mac is set up. Just while we were briefly off screen a moment ago, I did install some applications. So you can see Microsoft Office has all been set up. Here we have, preferred browsers like Edge in this instance.
And I'm guessing that Windows box over there is just, background pulling down applications and configs and stuff.
Yeah, I've got some default ones here that just have been installed automatically for me, like GitHub Desktop, Citrix Workspace, for example. And then we're back into our company portal here, where I can see all of my applications. Anything else that I want to install. And I'm more or less off and running at this point.
It's pretty funny. The macOS one is ready quicker than the Windows one, when you think about it, considering it's Intune based.
That's right. One of the things that slows the Mac down a little bit, the Windows device down a little bit, is setting up the application control. It does actually take probably about 5 minutes just to apply application allow listing.
All right. Well, we understand that that's what's going to happen, and I think you've shown the point of the demo, which is you bump in a few creds, and then voila, it's done. So I think that's a pretty good overview of what Devicie does. Martin McGregor, thank you very much for joining us on this YouTube product demo to show us what it is you're doing.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Great to see you again, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to everybody.